Do you remember how overwhelming homeschooling seemed when you first started? Maybe you are still there, figuring it all out. That's why I created my new course, You Can Homeschool, now available. In this course, you'll learn everything you need to know about homeschooling. It includes 13 videos that cover everything from choosing curriculum to family routines. Above all, I'll help you homeschool purposefully and simply. Homeschooling isn't easy, but it can be simple. Welcome to the Super Simple Homeschool Podcast, where we help you find purpose in your homeschool while keeping it super simple. I'm your host, Jenny Hedrick, and today we are joined by special guest, Cherelle German. Cherelle has been homeschooling for 9 years and is here today to talk about unschooling your mindset. Too often as homeschool moms, we get stuck in a classroom mindset, and we're here to talk today about how that can hold you back from living a free and purposeful homeschool life. So without further ado, let's welcome Cherelle. Hi, Cherelle. Thank you for being here today.
Hey, Jenny. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, so can you just take a minute and introduce yourself?
Of course. So, hey, everyone. I am Cherelle German, and I'm the face and heart behind embracinghomeschool.com, which is a website dedicated to helping busy homeschool moms create a more intentional and simplified homeschool experience.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to have you on here today because I have been checking out your website for a while now, and I just love all of the resources you have on there and everything that you're about, because you're about simplicity and intentionality, and that is what I'm about as well. So I felt like it was a good fit to have you on here, and I appreciate you being here. So like I said in the intro, we're going to talk today about unschooling your mindset. So I want to pass this off to you and ask you the question, what does it mean to unschool your mindset?
Okay, so I love this question, but I first feel like I have to introduce you to the old me. So this will make sense. So if you can picture, first time homeschooling Mama Cherelle back in the day, all that I've ever known about education and learning in school was what was in a public school setting, because I was public schooled myself. So when I had my first child and I knew we wanted to homeschool, I knew nothing about homeschooling. So basically I set up our classroom just like a kindergarten classroom, and I tried to mimic everything that would be done in a public school setting. Well, as time went on and I homeschooled longer and longer, I really started to notice that my son was learning in more natural and organic ways that weren't tied down to like our curriculum or even our school hours. And it just really, really opened up my mind to, wow, like he's learning and it's not even school time, and that was just so foreign to me. And of course, fast forward some years later and, add 2 more kids in the mix. I was introduced to Charlotte Mason, which I'm sure you know who Charlotte Mason is.
Oh, yeah.
And and I was finally like, yes, someone who understands who I feel like understands me rather. And I finally was like, yay, there is a better way to educate our children. That's not just tied down to like a public school mindset. And so now going back to the question, what does it mean to unschool your mind? Personally, I just feel like it means letting go of any and all of the preconceived ideas you have about schooling and education and learning, and moving beyond, the textbook or the workbook and even the desk, or moving beyond the pressures of grade levels and all these milestone checklists that can, stress us out.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always tell moms, I'm like, who says that your third grader has to learn, XYZ in third grade? Why can't it be your first grader who learns that? Or why can't your child learn it when they're in 5th grade? And I feel like when you finally can unschool your mindset, you kind of let go of those pressures, and it really, really opens you up to being able to embrace homeschooling fully.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love how you talked about that pressure, because so often when I'm talking to new homeschool parents, that's what it's about, right? There's so much pressure to, how do I know if I'm doing enough? How do I know if I'm doing the right things? And when you really let go of that, it's so freeing.
It is, yes, and the pressure is gone. It's
Right.
wonderful.
It is wonderful.
Yes, and you're free to homeschool your child or your children the way that you see fit for them or for your family, and just that pressure being lifted off you is so wonderful.
Truly, truly. So what are the most common classroom mindsets, if you will? That's what I've started calling them, because it's like getting out of the classroom when I'm unschooling, really unschooling the mindset. So what do you see are the most common classroom mindsets that you encounter in homeschooling families?
Okay, so I can think of 3 off the top of my head. And the first would be almost like what you said, is like, oh, am I doing enough for my child for their grade level? Or are they learning enough, in grade 7? Are they learning all that they need to learn this year? And it's like, who creates these things that tells us they have to learn this in grade 7? And I always use this analogy, and I say, we're all moms and we all have multiple children. And I say, all of your children did not learn to tie their shoes at the same age or ride a bike at the same age. And did it make them, weird, or, are they not thriving in life because they learned to tie their shoes at 4 instead of 3, And so I always tell moms, like, get out of that mindset of like, oh, my child is in 3rd grade, they must learn all of these things or else I'm just a total failure. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So that's the first mindset, classroom mindset rather, that I feel like I encounter with a lot of homeschooling families. And the next one is a big one that I really had a hard time breaking free from in the beginning. And that was getting out of that rut of pen and paper equals learning.
Mm-hmm.
And curriculum equals learning.
Yep.
Or writing down an answer or making a huge project or, answering these multiple choice questions. Like, oh, that shows that they learned. Absolutely not. Like, our children are just learning. They're learning all day. And we cannot have that mindset that tells us like, well, if they're not, doing a lesson or writing it down on paper, then it doesn't equal learning. That is so not true. So not true.
Definitely.
And then let me think. Another one I would say is feeling like your children have to be like in a classroom. And of course, we're homeschool moms. So, some of us have homeschool rooms. Some of us use the kitchen table. Some of us might do it in the living room, but feeling like your children have to be sitting down at a table or, a dedicated school time or school hours. That's not true. If we decide that we want to do like an impromptu lesson at like 9:30 at night because, just something was brought up, like, why not? Why does it have to be during the, times of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
Right.
That's that public school mindset that is ingrained in most of us who are public schooled. So those are usually what I encounter a lot with homeschooling families.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of those. And I think, one of the things that I have found is I really don't need to stress about like making sure that my kids are learning because
exactly,
like they are learning all of the time with or without me. And,
yes.
Homeschooling has just really become more about fostering an environment that is conducive to learning and not squashing their curiosity. Right. And
right.
so we've started a thing, and we're going to do this year where I'm calling it, the wonder wall. And anytime we wonder about something, we're going to put it up on the board until we have a minute to dive in and answer the question. So, I love that. This came to me. Well, this came to me because my son over the summer one day came up to me and said, "Mom, how do they get seeds from carrots?" And I was like, I think I know, but I want to make sure. And then I'm like, but I don't have time right now. So we'll come back to it. And then he came back to me like a week later. He's like, Mom, no, really, how do they get seeds from carrots? I'm like, okay, we need to like have a way of tracking all these like curiosity questions that come up. And then, like we ended up watching a YouTube video of a farmer collecting all the seeds, from the carrot flowers, that are on the tops of the carrots. And he like learned a ton, and, it took, I don't know, 5 minutes, and we both learned a ton. And it's like, that's homeschool. Like, we don't have to, just because we didn't get it out of a book that we planned to do, it's learning, and he's going to remember that because he was interested in it.
Oh, totally. And you know what, that just actually brought up another classroom mindset in my mind. So you said, he was interested, number one, which is amazing, but it only took 5 minutes. It only took 5 minutes for him to learn something. And, so many new homeschooling moms, they're like, they feel this pressure that every single subject needs to take like an hour.
Yes.
Because that's what we did in public school.
Yes.
But no, like, your son learned about farming and plants and seeds in 5 minutes.
Right.
And that's it. And he learned, like, he's fine.
Right.
So, yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. That's a huge mindset that I come across with people too, is like that it has to take a certain amount of time. But honestly, my kids, like, they're dyslexic, and I have boys who are very active, like, we don't do a lesson
right.
for more than 15 or 20 minutes in any subject, it's like we just capture their attention and get it done, and then we move on. Like, it doesn't need to be this whole drawn out ordeal. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell me why you think this kind of mindset shift is so important.
Ooh, okay. So I will just say that the mindset shift is so important, because if you don't do it, you are going to constantly beat yourself up, because there is this pressure that you're always going to have, that you're going to try to measure up to either, another child in the same grade level or age as your child, or even just, what's happening in public schools. And so if you don't do a mindset shift, you're going to have that constant pressure. And it's really stressful as a mom, because we already have a lot on our plates. Like, we're not just homeschool moms. We still run homes. We still have to cook and clean, and we have a lot already on us. And to have that pressure, it's just not healthy. So it's very important that you do a mindset shift, because also it really robs you of the true joys and blessings really of homeschooling. Because if you have that public school mindset, you can't enjoy like what you and your son did with the carrots. Because if you were in a public school mindset, you would say, well, it's the summertime, so let's wait until September when we start school, and
right.
Maybe we'll be able to fit it into our curriculum, but probably not, because you're in the 3rd grade, and that's more like 2nd grade. You know what I mean? Like,
right? Yeah, yeah.
But you were able to take, during the summer. I'm assuming it was during the summer. Maybe it didn't happen, but let's just pretend it's during the summer. Okay, perfect. And he was able to learn something on his summer break. And he was interested in it, and it's because you don't have that mindset shift of, oh, it has to be like a public school. So yes, that.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. And another thing too, back to your son's carrot, question, which is so perfect for our conversation. But when you do let go of that public school mindset, you're free to homeschool as you please. Just like you said, like, you were able to tailor his question to learning. And I mean, I'm sure that wasn't in your curriculum or in your plans for the school year.
Yeah.
But he just had this random interest, and you were able to foster that and teach him something he was interested in. And that can't happen in a public school. Like, they don't have time for that. They have 20-something students. If they did that all day, they would never get through anything.
Right. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And I love what you said about, the shift in mindset. So you're not comparing to where other kids are at, or other families are at, or where kids are at in the public schools, or what they're learning in the public schools, and I think that for me has been the most important mindset shift. When I think about like unschooling or deschooling my mindset, because especially with kids who are dyslexic, I remember being so discouraged, because I was told, so I discovered my son was dyslexic when he was around 3rd grade age. And I remember being told, well, if he's not reading by the end of his 3rd grade year, he will never catch up. Catch up to what, first of all?
Exactly.
But,
exactly. To what?
But there's this statistic out there among public school and educators in the classroom settings that is, if kids aren't reading by third grade, then they'll never, read proficiently. And what I realized and what someone somewhere in some blog, I'm sure, helps me realize was that statistic has everything to do with the fact that they stopped teaching reading after the third grade. And so it's not about like some developmental age that children magically can't learn to read after the, third grade. It has everything to do with if they're in a school setting, they stop teaching it because most children figure it out by then.
Right.
And that was just a huge shift for me because my son is now sixth grade age and he just started reading in the last year. And,
Wow.
it's like, okay, like it took a while and he still has some, growth to do, but it's there's so many scare tactics out there about
totally,
what is or isn't going to happen to your children if you do or don't meet these certain criterias. And it really is based on a setting that is completely irrelevant to homeschool.
Totally. And honestly, if I can encourage you and all of your listeners who might have had similar experiences as you, but at the end of the day, when your son is an adult, and even if he decides to go to college, like when he goes to apply for a job or goes to apply for college, they're not going to ask him, hey, did you learn to read when you were in kindergarten? Because if not, we're not hiring you or we're not accepting you into college. Like, no, they just want to make sure he can read now at age 18. So It doesn't matter what age they learn to read. I mean, of course, there's that pressure. We want them to learn when they're young. But you know what? If he wasn't ready for it, he wasn't ready for it. And now he's reading. And you would never know. When you meet him when he's 18, you would never know, oh, the kid learned to read when he was in sixth grade. You would never know.
Right. Exactly. and it is really silly when you think about it. I used to get so worked up about, we only have, all until they're 17 or 18 and we got to make sure that they learn all these things. And I'm like, wait a second. Like I don't know all those things because I don't remember those things. And, now, I've shared my story about how I hated history growing up and I don't remember anything from history, but now I love it. And I love reading, historical fiction and then learning about the true events that books are based on. And,
right.
And I remember those things because now I'm interested in it. And,
exactly.
I'm, 42 years old and I'm learning history, like, because it's fascinating to me, but when I was in college and in high school, I barely passed because I didn't care.
Exactly right. Me too. I didn't go to college, but I barely passed high school.
Yeah, right. I mean, so we don't need to have this pressure that they have to learn everything by the time they're done with school for us, especially in this day and age where all it takes is a quick search on the internet to find out pretty much anything. And teaching kids how to responsibly find information and how to know what kind of information is good information and to think critically about the things that they see and learn and read. All those things are far more important than memorizing dates of wars in other countries.
Exactly. And I think what's most important too, as homeschooling moms, is teaching our children how to learn.
Yes.
And that's important because, in a public school, they're not taught how to learn. They're just taught, here's the information, soak it in, pass the test, moving on. And that's, again, why you and I don't remember stuff in history because we just learned it for that quick little,
for the test.
For the test. And then, but we never fully understood it or we didn't really learn. We just memorized the fact and then out our brain it goes. So if we could just teach our children how to be learners and how to learn, they can do anything they want to in life. They can learn anything. And that just reminded me of a story of, I was listening to a podcast and it was actually a dad. He homeschooled the children. I can't remember the situation, but his son, they did like a Charlotte Mason education, I believe all of high school and all of the grades basically. And anyway, when his son wanted to go to college to be an engineer, he failed the test, whatever the test is. And the dad was discouraged and he was like, I failed my child, what did I do? But what he did do for his son is he taught his son how to learn. And so his son spent, I think it was like 3 months just taking an online course. And then he went and retook the test and he passed with flying colors. I mean, like above and beyond. And he's an engineer. So, there is that pressure, like you were saying, like we have to teach our children all this stuff by 18. But no, if you could just teach your child how to learn, they can learn anything they want.
Oh,
we
yeah.
surely can't cover anything. Everything. We cannot cover everything. There's so much to be learned out there. But if you teach them how to learn, they can go on and they can learn anything.
Well, and with that example, the learning became important to that child, right? That young adult or whatever, because he knew he needed to pass this test to do what he wanted to do. And so, now all of a sudden that learning became relevant. It became important. And he knew how to move forward to pass that test so that he could move forward with, his choice of career path. And so that's exactly it. We don't have to teach our kids, if we don't think our kids can do math all the way up through calculus, we don't have to do that. And then if they decide later that they need to go into a career that includes those classes, then they can go get those classes then, like it's not like it's the end of the world if we don't 100% prepare them for any choice that they could possibly make at the time that they're 18 years old.
Right. Oh, you sound so much like me. Like everything you just said, that's like totally what comes out of my mouth to everyone as well. Because even like, all of our children are different. So you know your children and you may notice that one is going to go in some sort of career path that might need calculus. Then you might encourage them to take it in high school. But if they're not interested, and especially if you really can tell they're not going to go in a career path that would need it, like do not pressure them to do it. There's no point. I can think of my own self, like, okay, geometry, like I don't ever use geometry.
Right.
I don't even remember algebra. Like
no,
all these things they forced us to take. And I'm like, okay, I use addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, some fractions.
Yep.
And I'm good. And that's like all elementary school stuff. I asked my husband one time, I was like, okay, tell me on your 10 fingers, how many things you remember from, kindergarten until he dropped out and when he was in 9th grade and got a GED, but the dude is smart. Okay. He's really smart. So I was like, just tell me like on your 10 fingers, how many things you learn or you remember learning from, all of your years of schooling. And I think he only got to like 7. And I was like, exactly. I was like, this is what I try to tell moms. Like, there's so much pressure to measure up, but like, really, how many things can you name that you can really, really remember that you learned in all of your 12 years of schooling? And you went to college too, but.
Yeah. Exactly. And our kids will be so much better off because, they are learning things that they're interested in and they know now how to go find information and how to learn something new. And that is a skill that will serve them throughout their whole entire life. So I love that. I love that so much. So we're all about simplicity here at the Super Simple Homeschool Podcast. So tell me how that this mindset shift can help to simplify your homeschooling.
Oh, yes. Okay. So number one, if you have that mindset shift, you will start embracing homeschooling as a lifestyle and not separate. So like you don't have your school life, your homeschool life, and then we turn that off. And then now we're doing just real life. But if you are out of that mindset, you've fully embraced homeschool as a lifestyle. And so you just realize, hey, we're learning all day, every day, weekends, mornings, nights, summer break, and holidays. And to me, that's so simple because there's not a lot of thought. I mean, going back to the carrot question with the seeds, like it only took a quick Google search for you to find the information that you needed to teach your son what he had asked. And how simple is that? I mean, you didn't have to go print out this curriculum and go get 15 books from the library in order to answer the question. That was just simple, super simple learning.
Right.
I love it. And again, you'll see that your kids are learning in more natural ways. And to me, that is just like the simplest form of learning because again, you don't have that like pressure to like feel like you have to use a curriculum or feel like you have to stay, you know, in a book or complete a lesson. And you can just go on about your daily life and just embrace the little bits of learning that pop in here and there, or even just use things that happen in life as a teaching point. So like, here's some examples I like to tell people. So, let's pretend, you know, you have, you know, a first grader and you decide, hey, we're going to make muffins this morning. So you make muffins and together you guys are measuring the ingredients. You know, you're discussing the fractions that are on the measuring cups and the measuring spoons. And, you know, if your family is anything like mine, you're probably missing a measuring spoon or a measuring cup. So you kind of have to like, you know, double things up. You know, you're teaching them, hey, 2 1/4 will equal 1/2, you know, because we're missing that 1/2 cup, you know. And so before you know it, you have, of course, blueberry muffins to eat. And you've snuck in air quotes, some simple math.
Right.
But you didn't sit down and do like a math book, you know, and that to me is just like a simple way to learn and the best way to just embrace learning into your life. And of course, you're giving them some life skills too, because you're cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that example. And I think you can do that if you really think about, really, like you said, anything in your life that you're doing, instead of, oh, I have to go do this, you guys work on your copy work or whatever, living life together and taking advantage of all those simple opportunities for learning that exist in all the things we do as homeschool moms.
Right. And, you know, I heard a mom say, Allison Hartman, she's amazing, but she says, you know, we're raising adults and we have to remember that we're raising adults. And I've really started to embrace that. And to me, what that means is like, I don't have to baby my children, which I don't feel like I really ever did that. But now is the time to teach them how to be an adult. So for instance, like if I'm making a phone call to a business, I tell my kids, hey, come sit in the room with me. I'm going to put them on speakerphone. I want you to listen to me. Listen to the way that I'm interacting with the customer service rep. Listen to the way I'm asking the question. You know, listen to the way I'm repeating my phone number. Notice how I'm doing it slow. And I want them to learn those things. Like, but we're not doing a home ec or a life skills class.
Right.
That's just real life. And, you know, it could just be randomly in the middle of the day. It might not even be school time, but they're still learning. And how simple is that? They're learning how to use a phone, or, I mean, take grocery shopping. I mean, this can go in a million different directions, but grocery shopping or meal planning and, you know, budgeting, like learn to involve your kids in real life, because we are raising adults. We're not raising children to be children. We're raising them to be members of society that are hopefully good with their money, you know, who will learn how to cook for themselves and meal plan and budget, and even for our boys, of course. Teach them how to make a phone call. I mean, that is so needed in today's day and age, because so many young people, they're so used to texting or, you know, whatever else they do, and they don't know how to have customer service skills on the phone.
Or any phone skills. or any phone skills for that matter. Yeah. And so just, I mean, how simple is it to just say, hey, I'm about to make a phone call. Kids, come sit down and listen to the way this phone conversation goes. Yeah. And they can learn. I love that. Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because I recently was realizing my kids have little, like watches, like, you know, the kids watches where you can call and text, and just as a, you know, kind of an emergency thing for us. But every time I talk to them on there, they like have no phone skills. I'm like, okay, we really need to like learn this, because they'll just like hang up on me, and I'm like, okay. I guess we're done now.
Bye.
So yeah, definitely though. That's a great, I love that, having them listen in, on, you know, conversations when appropriate, of course, to get the feeling of that flow of, you know, phone etiquette and conversation. I love that. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I am loving this conversation, and I want to wrap up, but I want to learn more about your curriculum. So you created a Charlotte Mason inspired curriculum. Is that accurate? Charlotte Mason inspired. Is that fair?
Inspired. Yes, it's fair. I definitely call it eclectic, but I would say it leans heavily towards a Charlotte Mason philosophy, but not 100% Charlotte Mason.
Sure. I like that, that verbiage. And it's called the Simplified Feast. And so it's a family style learning curriculum. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So as you mentioned, it is a family style learning curriculum. And, some people actually don't know what that means. I've had a couple moms say, what does family style even mean? So for those of you who don't know, family style basically means you're going to do the curriculum together as a family. So it is geared for grades K through 8. And of course, if you have younger children, they can join in the fun too. And even if you have older children, depending on where they're at, they could also join in as well. But it is geared for grades K through 8, and you will sit down and do it together as a family. And I know some of you might be thinking like, well, wait, I didn't think she did curriculum. I promise you, I'm not against curriculum. It just doesn't rule my homeschool or my life anymore. But yeah, so it is eclectic. So by that, it means we definitely pull in some ideas from Charlotte Mason, and it's some unit studies and just all different things, because I just believe there's like beauty in all the different philosophies of education. And I am really eclectic in nature anyway. So it was hard for me to just say, hey, it's just this. So I just pull a bunch of stuff from everything because that's just me.
Nice.
And so we do have unit studies, and those are just like on a one topic theme. But our volumes are not. So those are definitely very eclectic in nature. So the history, geography, and social studies will stay on the same time period, but everything else within the curriculum is going to just be a broad feast and just very random, but giving your children a broad feast of education. And again, for those who might not know the term spreading the feast or the broad feast of education, it just basically means giving your children like a wide variety of subjects like arts and all these different and beautiful things to glean from and learn from, and not just sticking to the basics. So it is simplified because that, just like Jenny, I am all about simplicity. So I knew that I wanted a curriculum to be simple, yet I wanted it to be really rich and full. And it was just something that I couldn't find. And I looked for it. I've been looking for it for years, and I couldn't find something that included so many subjects, yet it was simplified. And so, of course, what did I do? I decided to create it myself. And so now we have the Simplified Feast. And, I can give you like a quick overview of like, let's say, some of the subjects you would cover in one unit. So if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this is from the homesteading unit study. So this is just over the course of 1 week. So it's on a 4-day school schedule a week, and you can choose whatever days you want to homeschool. And each day should take you about 3 hours a day. So again, it's super simple. So throughout the week, you'll learn Bible and scripture memorization, composer study, hymn study, folk songs, artist and picture study, poetry, notebooking, copy work, history, home economics and life skills, geography and social studies, science. And then we do have a tea time read aloud each day. And then handicrafts, art, nature study, community service, and cooking. And then I do not include math, and I do not include like a phonics and language arts program, but it is written on the daily schedule. So it's already blocked in for you. So you just basically follow the 8 daily blocks a day, and you're going to fit everything in plus some.
Sure. Wow. I love that. That's like so extensive. And I love the idea of getting it all in without like having to hand pick or find all those different things that you just kind of laid it all out, laid it all out there for you, because that's kind of my thing is like, I just kind of cherry pick all the different things that we're going to do. But sometimes I'm like, well, but I really want to do some art, but I don't know where to like put that in. And, I really want to do like some poetry, but where is that going to fit? So I love that you've just kind of laid it all out. And it's still in that like short basic time frame. So it's not, like taking up your whole day, sitting down at the table.
Right. And it's also included. So, I had researched so many curriculums because I'm like, there's got to be something out there that I'm thinking of. And there were a lot of them that would include, let's say, history or science, but it wasn't in the curriculum. It was, they would outsource it and say, but you need to buy this for the science portion or buy this for the history portion. But no, everything is included in the Simplified Feast. Again, besides your math and besides your language arts or phonics. So when you are doing history or doing science or geography, it's actually in the curriculum and the poetry and all that. So you don't have to, like you said, cherry pick from over here and piece it all together. Nope, it's all included. I wanted to make your life easier.
Nice. Well, I love that. And I'm just looking again at the volumes, and so tell me about the volumes. So it says you get 24 lessons for each volume, and there's how many? Is this like a curriculum where you go back and do it over and over again, or when you get through all the volumes, are you kind of done?
Yes. So with the volumes, there are 24 lessons, as you had mentioned. You could go back over them, especially if you have a younger child. Let's say, especially if you have one child, you could probably hit volume 1 when they're younger. And then in a couple of years, you could hit it again.
Sure.
Just because besides things like composer study or poetry, things like that, when it comes to like history and notebooking and copywork and all of those sorts of subjects, there are levels in the curriculum.
Yeah.
So there's level 1, level 2, level 3. So technically you could revisit it if you wanted to.
Sure.
I didn't create it with that idea in mind, but it's not shunned upon. I mean, for sure, if you want to redo it when your child gets a little bit older and they've moved on to level 3, go for it. But the volumes, so we're doing the history portion in like chronological order.
Sure.
So volume 1 focused on like creation to ancient Egypt. Volume 2 was ancient China. 3 was ancient Greece. Then we have 4 was ancient Rome. Then 5 is the Middle Ages. 6 is the Renaissance. And we just are getting through 6 right now and about to start working on 7.
Okay.
So again, they're not a unit study, but the history, social studies portion does kind of follow along that same theme. Now, on the flip side, the unit studies we have for the Simplified Feast, they are on just like one topic and theme. And you could do them over again in a couple of years if you wanted to.
Awesome. Well, I love the concept, and I love the affordability too, Cherelle. I've got to say, I'm like, man, I might have to check this out. There's not like a huge risk investment here. It's like, it's like $30 and I can try it. And if it works, then, hey, then I found something great. And if it doesn't, I haven't spent all my money,
Exactly. So. I know. And that was one thing. I was like, I want it to be affordable. And of course I wanted it to be simple, but I just know it can get pricey homeschooling multiple children. And I don't want to do that to people. I'm like, I'm just going to make it affordable because I don't want people to say they can't afford it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I love that. And I know homeschooling moms everywhere will appreciate that. Well, I am so happy to have had you on here today, Cherelle. And I can't wait to check out some of the other resources you have on your website and encourage my listeners to do the same. So before we're finished, do you have anything else you want to add, Cherelle?
Yeah, so I actually wrote down a quote, and it's from Ainsley Arment from Wild and Free. And so I just want to read it to encourage you mamas out there. And it says, "Our children need our time, not our intelligence. They bloom with love, not perfect language skills. They need mercy, not intellectual mastery. And they will learn, indeed, truly learn, when they are given time to explore ideas without constant fact-checking, tracking, and examination. One of the main reasons we homeschool is to foster relationships with our children. So when we prioritize the relationship over the to-do list, we are succeeding."
I love that so much. Thank you so much, Cherelle. I'm so glad to have had you on here today. And until we meet again, which I'm sure we will, take care.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.